power, strength, explosiveness, and athleticism. Just a few things that Olu Fashanu, the rookie offensive tackle for the New York Jets, showed in his NFL preseason debut. We're going to discuss this and more coming up next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every day. As you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. And like I say, every single show, man, if you can hear my voice, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over at Locked On NFL Draft. DP, we talking more preseason, but we're talking about the big boys, man. We're going to the trenches. We're going to talk about the New York Jets, because guess what, DP? They need some optimism. They need something positive going over there, man, with everything going on with Hassan Reddick. We're going to talk about their rookie offensive tackle, Olu Fashanu. Then we're going to go ahead, swing to the West Coast. We're going to talk about rookie offensive tackle Joe Oden, then finish that thing up in Baltimore, man, with cornerback rookie Nate Wiggins. We're going to have a really fun, action-packed show. But DP, before we get started with this show, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports aren't sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Olu Fashanu, first-round pick for the New York Jets, Keith, and a guy who started his first preseason game, got his first taste of action, and watching the tape, watching it live, then watching the tape, listen, I'm giving him an A, Keith. He played 25 snaps, 11 run blocking, 14 pass blocking, 0 pressures allowed, 0 sacks allowed, 0 QB hits allowed. But it was just a fact of just watching him. And the thing I was paying attention to was for him was the things in the draft report, was the hand usage, the mechanics, the technical aspect of the game. Like it's crazy because you could tell when the players work with someone that's been so good in the league, like a Tyron Smith, because one of Tyron Smith's go-to moves is the flash bait technique, where he throws that feint punch, and then Olu does it the same exact way. And I'm like, yeah, he's been learning from the master of that technique, right? But also in college, Olu was an inside hand puncher, which is not really a good thing for an offensive tackle. Because if you shoot the inside hand, you can lock your hip, you can get beat inside. It just really messes you up because then you don't have really a way to recover. Where instead of you shoot the outside hand, you got the inside hand to help you recover. He wasn't doing that in his first preseason game. So clearly it was a coaching point to this. He worked on it, but also the strength, the latch strength, the grip strength, the anchor. And it was one or two instances where he got beat initially, but I think, what was it, the 2022 season when we first watched him, and it was like you saw that athleticism, the ability to flip his hips like a corner, turn and recover. He did that. So he anchored well. Like he was locked down in this game against the Washington Commanders, right? And I love to see that growth, because that was some of the stuff I worried about. I'm like, okay, will we see him early in the season at all, right? You got Morgan Moses, who they traded for, Tyron Smith. But Tyron Smith stays, I mean, he's older. He's at the end of his career, still really good, but he's battled injuries. So I think what Olu showed is hey, if Tyron Smith does get hurt, you wouldn't have a problem with me stepping in.
Yeah, so you hit on a couple of good points, DP, that I just kind of want to, I guess, re-emphasize. And you talked about learning from a veteran, right? And that's why people hear me on this podcast so much. It's like, I just want 1 year, right, where I have a veteran and a rookie combination, right, to where I draft this rookie, and then there's an older guy that's there, savvy veteran, played at a high level, just to teach him the ropes for 1 year, and then you can transition. So and that's the reason why, is because just those little detailed techniques, right? Are like, hey, this veteran can tell me what the veteran edge rushers are going to do, right? And then that way I know what's going to work in most situations. And then even they become a important piece to in-game coaching, right? It's like I'm watching this offensive line, and yeah, we have our offensive line coach, right? But just because the old line coach, he might be like, you might only have 3-4 minutes on the sideline, depending on what happens, right? And then the old line coach is too busy talking to the center and the guard about, some dual block that they didn't operate efficiently. But Tyron Smith was able to see something with Olu Fashanu. He's able to pull him to the side, like, hey, young fella, I'm looking at this, XYZ, stuff like that, right? They almost turn into a specialist, right? Like a specialist for the player to be able to help them out. So you made that point, DP, and I think that's a really good point. And just overall with Olu, I think you've seen just the type of supreme athlete that he was, right? Because all of those technical stuff, it looked like it didn't matter, right? Because he was just that athletically superior. And then also it was like the baseline for, how am I trying to say this? I guess the baseline for what some of his deficiencies were for, his talent baseline was higher than that anyway, right? Like he's just that talented and that skilled that it's like, you know what? Now it's almost, you almost feel like, was I nitpicking a little bit, right? Just, trying to critique him and things like that. So, man, just a supremely talented guy. And I don't know how it's going to play out, right? Because you would like the situation to be able to be like, hey, we want to be able to start this rookie, but obviously I don't necessarily know if I feel comfortable or want to do it. If he looked that good at left tackle, do I want to swing him to the right side and then have him learn some stuff, get to his mental again and have to reconfigure some things and then switch him back to the left side after that? I don't know if I necessarily want to do that either. So
what about playing him at guard? Like, because that was the discussion after they drafted him too. It's like, maybe you only get your best 5 on the field, right? So it's like, if Tyron and Morgan Moses have the tackle spots locked down, would you put him in that guard? I personally don't think I want to do that either. I'd rather just let him sit behind those 2 vets.
Yeah, that's the other part about having a veteran, right? Is that the rookie has to sit. I don't know if I want to do that, DP, just because it almost feels like when you feel like you have something good, like, don't mess it up, right? And in the Jets, historically, they've done some things, but we're not gonna hold that against them. So I just wouldn't.
Past.
Yeah, the past is the past, right? And we're just not gonna mess this thing up. So I leave him at left tackle, and you don't want to get into the whole, if Tyron Smith get injured, right? Because you don't hope injury on any players. Just that the current situation, this kind of is what it is type of situation. And I wonder if it was just when it came down to the draft, the Jets were not expecting Olu Fashanu to be there. And then that's why they just say, hey, we can't pass up on this guy. We'll figure it out after the fact, right? So we'll see about that and just moving them.
I think that's a good point, Keith. I don't think they expected him to be sitting where they were. And it's a simple fact of like I said, everything like physically translated, like the explosiveness, the power, the strength, the athleticism, like his get off, like hit the initial burst off the ball into his kick slide. Like it's crazy how much depth he can create with one move, that one step back. And it's just like, bro, it's hard to beat him around the edge because he's going to meet you at the apex almost every time because of how explosive and how quickly he gets off the ball. So, yeah, if I'm the Jets, like, Elijah Vera-Tucker, AVT is good. If your interior offensive line, you got Joe Tippmann at center. If your interior offensive line are solid and solidified, I'm going to let them 2 veterans play until I feel like if you feel like, man, midseason, you got to make a change, then you make that change. I'm not putting Olu at guard. I don't want to put him at right tackle. Let's leave him at left tackle because, Keith, we got to talk about somebody that's playing right tackle that wasn't playing right tackle in college.
Well, DP, there we go. That's the perfect transition right there. I usually handle the transitions. DP, you knocked that out, baby. So we're on to Mr. Joe Altman, the guy who played left tackle at Notre Dame, was the number 5 overall pick, and he just transitioned to playing right tackle for the Los Angeles Chargers. We're about to talk about this conversation, man, moving from left to right, and then how did Joe Alt look in his first action in the NFL preseason week 1? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Some of my self-care non-negotiables start with my monthly appointment with my therapist. I must make sure my mental health is intact and it's strong and pushing forward. In there, I get to unload the stress, any bad thoughts, any burdens or weight on my shoulders, being able to vent and get things off of my chest. But also getting back into the gym. Yes, it hurts to work out. Your body feels it, you feel it afterwards, but it's good for you to make sure your mental health and your physical health are on the same level. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big projects for work, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. So if you think about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. The 5th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft class, Joe Alt, left tackle out of Notre Dame, going to those Los Angeles Chargers. Started at right tackle. He's going to be playing right tackle with Rashawn Slater, slated to play left tackle for those Chargers. And, he played, 21 snaps in this game. 8 run blocking, 13 pass blocking. In the run game, of course, the zone stuff, he's going to do well at, right? Being able to wash guys, use their momentum. He's such a big body, man. You know what I mean? To be able to get hands on and just wash it down. But I love the athleticism of him on the move. They ran, I think it was a tall sweep, and he's the pulling. He pulled out, and he got out there, right? Got out there on this high horse, running at full speed. Created a lane, some good blocking on the perimeter, and he in down or man blocking situations, that's a position or a situation I always kind of felt like he wasn't the greatest at. Like, he didn't move guys off the ball. You know what I mean? He's 6'8", so the natural leverage isn't in his favor or advantage ever with his body type, right? But he did a good job kind of stonewalling some guys. I ended up giving him kind of a B-. The pass rush reps, this is where I think that this is going to be interesting for him. It's going to be those wide 9 rushers. Seattle Seahawks threw wide 9 at him and widened out Derek Hall and Uchenna Nwosu. And they had success with him. Uchenna, speed to power, got his hands into Joe Alt's chest, drove him back. And Joe Alt struggled to quickly drop the anchor, stop that momentum. It actually caused, because it was Easton Stick at quarterback, he was trying to hit like a flat or a quick out route. And Joe Alt, that entire massive human being that he is now in his purview, in his throwing lane. He tries to sidearm it, and it's like he gave up a pressure and a hurry in this game. But also, Derek Hall was able to beat him on the inside move. They were running a stunt where you had it was like I think it was an ET stunt, and Derek Hall was the penetration, the surge creator, while the defensive tackle was kind of looping. But he ended up put Joe Alt on skates when he worked back across his face. And it was something that I saw with Joe Alt. He kind of lunges at times when he tries to two-hand punch and get hands on guys in pass protection. So it's like just some technical things that you want to see him work on, because when you're that big and you're a good athlete like that, you don't want to see you head over your knees, right? You're bending at the waist and you're lunging forward and being kind of top heavy. But overall, I thought he did a good job. You know what I mean? Especially in the run game. I like that. And that's what you're going to have to do in this offense. I don't know how much pass protection reps you're going to get when we get to the regular season. You're going to have to run block a lot with Greg Roman, but whenever Justin Herbert come back, Keith, but I give him a B-.
Yeah, I landed right on that grade also. And you talked about, I think he had a pressure surrendered, right? And I think this is the thing, though. When we put it into context, DP, and we just had this conversation with Olu Fashanu, right, about him playing the exact position he played in college, and then now Joe Alt flipping to the other side. If I put in context of him playing left tackle his entire life, right, being a number 5 overall pick, being flipped to the other side, and then this is his first NFL action, I think it's a solid performance, right? Because I just think it could be very concerning. And we've had people come on this podcast and talk about, right? It's like writing with your left hand and writing with your right hand, right? Just it's two totally different things. And I think that he's going to have to relearn a lot of mechanics, right? Just as far as, from playing left to right and, what's your plant foot, what's your power side, just things like that. And I think that's going to show what you're talking about, right? Ability to quickly anchor is like you're used to doing that opposite, right? Like what foot is your power foot? What foot are you going to anchor on? So it may take you an extra step to regather your step because you're like, oh man, this is a totally different position. I'm going to talk about Joe Alt. When I seen him in Minnesota at the training house, right? He's working with Alex Boone, the former San Francisco 49er offensive tackle, and really good mover, DP. Really good mover, good movement. And I think that showed in the preseason, right? You can kind of see that in the run game. But the part that I'll buy in is the pedigree of the young man. And he seems like he's taking this serious, right? Like, when your father's a first round pick and he plays left tackle, he got drafted in the first round, played 10 years, right? It's almost you were bred to be this, right? And that you don't know anything else. And I think he doesn't know anything else but success. Now, my question would be is this: where you might have gotten, and I'm asking you this question, DP, where you might have gotten a all-pro type of player at left tackle. Are you okay with getting a split if he plays 15 years, 8 years Pro Bowl, 7 years not, right? Instead of like a perennial all pro. Like how do you feel about that? Because I think that can be the difference. I think he's gonna play really talented. It's just a matter of, will he still be one of the top 3 to 5 offensive tackles in the NFL, or will he be one of the top 10, like 10 to 15, I guess is what you kind of say. So how do you feel about that threshold as far as, and just talking about drafting period, right? Like, would you do that, giving a little, I guess, to get a little because you get a starting right tackle, but you're also maybe potentially reducing how impactful he can be or his talent level?
Yeah, I mean, if he can still be a top 15, top 12, so like kind of threshold, I would like him to be top 12 to top 10, even at right tackle. I'm still fine. If he's not a all pro every year, stuff like that, I'm still good with that, because at the end of the day, like, that if he's reliable and he's steady Eddie, right, and it just gets the job done, that your quarterback's going to be protected. That Justin Herbert, who your hope is going to be there another 10, 12 years as your quarterback, he's not getting hurt. He's not getting hit off his right side. Even though he's a right-handed quarterback, blind sides to the left, you still, Rashawn Slater is doing his thing. And then at the same time, that versatility of being able to flip back left, if Rashawn Slater gets hurt, long as you got a good swing tackle to back up Joe Alt, you can flip Joe Alt back to the left and let him go ahead and do his thing at the left. And I think either way, I think you be happy with the return on that investment, right? Now, if he's bottom, like if he's like top 20, like 17, you kind of like, okay, we drafted you top 5, we would like you to be a little bit higher than that. But I think he'd still be a top 12 type of guy, because the natural abilities there, like you said, the pedigree's there, the knowledge, working with NFL people, having a dad who played the position, and we know what that does for players, right? When you have that in your bloodline, like your dad. How many times we heard players like, who's had a father in the league at the same position, after the game hit them up, all right, this is what you did wrong. You know what I mean? Like, this is where you messed up at.
It's kind of what makes the bet so safe for Marvin Harrison Jr., right? You're like,
Right.
It's pretty hard to mess this one up, right? Because I don't seem like Big Marv DP is gonna take that too well, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
he's the smaller of the two. He's the smaller of the two, but he's.
And I was watching I was watching a commercial with Marvin Harrison Sr., and he was talking about, man, my son too passive, man. I told him, you got to go to the sideline and ask for the ball. Tell him I need the ball. And I was like, I didn't even know Marvin Harrison Sr. had that in him, right? Because his play demeanor, he was always so quiet, didn't say anything, right? He just kind of had the mustache, sitting there drinking his
silent
Gatorade.
Assassin, man.
Yeah, silent assassin, right? But I didn't know he was telling Peyton Manning, give me the ball now, right? And so that's what he's talking about, Marvin Harrison Jr. So I just thought that was funny, man, just watching those, kind of like father-son combos in the NFL. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. In a team that traditionally drafts very well, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. They went cornerback, right? They went Nate Wiggins, and we're going to talk about Nate Wiggins. How did he perform in his first NFL action in preseason week 1? We'll talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I love sports. Guys, I love them so much, but I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. And you can get in on the action right now. You can go ahead and beat the curve, right? You're talking about preseason betting odds for the NFL and college football, MVP, Heisman, college football playoff odds, as well as who's going to win the national championship. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer, because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, Nate Wiggins, cornerback for the Baltimore Ravens. They drafted in the first round, and I got to say, the Ravens just keep doing this. They keep getting away with this and drafting good football players. And in this game, he played 26 snaps in coverage. He played, I believe, almost the first half, if I remember correctly. Like he had 43 total snaps, 17 run, 26 in coverage. And in coverage, targeted 6 times. He allowed 2 receptions for 8 yards. He had 3 to 4 pass breakups. One that should have been an interception. He just didn't turn to look for the ball, but he showcased everything: fluid hips, quick feet, deep speed, stop and start ability. It was on, I think, one of the drives where he was targeted heavily. I think, if I remember correctly, Kenny Pickett targeted him like 3 straight times, and he broke up all 3 passes. And I'm like, Kenny, you might want to look somewhere else. Like, this is not working out for you. The grade I gave him was, I gave him an A minus. The coverage ability, and then the things of what we always talk about when the ball is headed in your way and you see it and you're driving. Are you playing the receiver or are you playing the ball? He played both. He played through the receiver to the football, punch through the pocket, create those pass breakups. The play, I think it was against John Ross. It was a go ball, and he's running stride for stride with him, right? Like 4-2. What was it? What was it? John run 4-2.
4-2,
4-2-4.
Yeah, something. He's winning because he had the record, right? He had the record.
Yeah, he had the record until Xavier Worthy, smashed it. And so, you got 4-2-4 in John Ross, probably 4-2-8 now, a little bit older still. Then you got 4-2-9 in Nate Wiggins, and he's just running stride for stride with him, but he doesn't turn to look at the ball, and the ball's inside. So it would have fallen right into his hands if he just turned around and looked for it. So I know that, Zach Orr, the defensive coordinator, John Harbaugh, the head coach, that's something that they talked about in film study. After they return, after they're getting like, hey, turn and look for the ball, because that's how you make more plays on the ball down the field. But you saw the click and close ability. The thing, of course, like the tackling was solid. I think he did a solid job tackling. He's going to be a guy that's not going to be a heavy hitter. He's going to be a chop at the knees, try to chop the tree trunk, but also a guy that wants to make contact and sustain that contact and let the rally come. The rest of the defense help him out in those situations if he can't take the guy's knees out. But in coverage, he was stellar.
Yeah. And so it's a couple things. One, how I am with corners and tackling. I care for the latter of what you said, right? Or you just gonna step in there and it stop it until the rest of the people come. I don't need you to be the biggest hitter. I got linebackers for that, right? And if my corner tackles tougher than my linebackers, I got a problem, right? I defensively have a problem. But I will say this, and it was a good sighting with Nate Wiggins, and this is why culture matters so much, DP, that at Clemson, and we don't know what was going